Hello, girlies, please have a seat. Please, we need to have a very important conversation. Grab a cup of coffee while at it. Grab your notepad because we need to talk about certain things in this houseplant community and industry. Okay? Now, the problem I have with some of you girlies is that you do not buy houseplants with the express intent to decorate your homes. You just collect those plants because they are rare, because you want to increase your collection, forgetting that houseplants can also be used to design and decorate your home. And there are certain plants that make excellent decorative plants, okay? That rare anthurium, as exotic as it may look, honestly is not a decorative plant. I think we need to start distinguishing between decorative plants specifically purchased for their decorative value and decorative purposes, and plants that you grow, just to build your collection. Now, what makes an excellent decorative plant? An excellent decorative plant, in my opinion, is a plant that fits into most spaces. You don't have to worry about, do I keep it here? No, even an intermediate, even a basic homeschooler should be able to place that plant in a certain corner, and then automatically it elevates the corner. Another thing I want you to know is just because the plant is a decorative plant or looks decorative doesn't mean it is a good decorative plant, which leads me to the next definition of what a decorative plant is. A decorative plant is a plant that even when placed in a low light corner doesn't lose its decorative appeal. It still remains beautiful. It doesn't start dropping leaves. It doesn't start looking like a hot mess. I've come up with a list of proper decorative plants that you can easily place in pretty much any corner and then enhance and elevate your space without giving you so much work, maintenance, and fuss. And if you're wondering, who the hell gave me the audacity? What are my qualifications? Look at the material.
Look at the material.
You should be going home anyway.
Okay, so the first plant on this iconic list is a snake plant. And girlies, please, I don't want to hear any noise or any whining sounds of, I don't like snake plants. They are common, they're generic. Grow up. Snake plants may be common, especially the more conventional ones, but every single snake plant has several characteristics that make them integral and important in decorating every and any space. They have a defined growth profile, they have symmetry, they have structure. I mean, just look at the material. Look at the mathematical symmetry, the proportions. It actually feels like this isn't a plant, but rather a decorative artwork, a decorative vase, some will even think. Regardless of whatever snake plant you have, whether it is the more common one or something a bit more unique and interesting, they will always provide structure to any given space, whether they are placed on the ground or whether they are placed on top of a shelf. I remember buying this lounge chair in my living room. Some of you may have noticed it in my previous videos. And when I first bought that lounge chair, I honestly didn't like it. Honestly, I was horrified because it was a lot lower than I expected. It just made the place look too low for my liking. But then I remember that God created snake plants, and I stuck a snake plant right at the edge of that chair, and automatically it lifted it up and gave it amazing dimensions due to its growth profile. And in fact, I can think of several places in my house. I'm very horrible with graphics, but I'm going to see if ChatGPT will be able to do this. But I can think of several places in my house that if I kept that particular snake plant, it will fit into so effortlessly. And that's not all. We've talked about the growth profile, we've talked about the structure, but what makes this a solid decorative plant is that it is really drought tolerant and also low light tolerant as well. I especially love that it doesn't get leggy, because in a lot of instances, if you keep these plants in low light spaces just for their decorative appeal, they will start to get stretchy and get leggy, which can ruin their decorative look and become a frightening sight to behold. But not your snake plant. Regardless of wherever you place it, it will not get stretchy and not get leggy. Also, the whole essence of a decorative plant, please, I just need to remind you of this. The whole essence of a decorative plant is not for the plant to actually grow and keep growing and grow. No, we are not concerned about the escalated growth of the plant. Yes, one leaf here and there, but we just want a plant that will maintain its structure, its volume, without even overgrowing a space. And that is where your snake plant comes in. So if you're one of those people that, oh, I don't like snake plants, then you're honestly missing out. And like I said, you do need to grow up. Now, the next plant on this list is one that I love to talk about a lot. The OG girlies of this page will agree as well. It's a ponytail palm. Now, the interesting thing about this ponytail palm is for those that actually want a plant that provides structure, just like your snake plant, but something that also provides a bit more foliage, then you have a 2-in-1 combination. You're also getting a plant that gives you just enough foliage where it doesn't become too overwhelming. Can I tell you something about the ponytail palm? Yes, this is an extremely drought tolerant plant, as you can see from the codex, right? But what's really, really astounding about this plant is that no two ponytail palms are the same. They all look different to a certain extent and all possess their own unique, quirky growth profile. This is why there are certain people that actually just keep buying ponytail palms. Like, I know I have a friend that just keeps buying ponytail palms wherever she sees it. And I'm like, babes, don't you have enough? And she lets me know, rightfully so, that they all look different. So you have a plant that you can grow as a desktop plant on a shelf. It will fit into any place like your snake plant because of that architectural, structural, defined growth profile. But you're also getting a plant that is always different. They hardly ever look the same. They hardly ever grow the same. Also, the awesome thing about your ponytail palm is that it is extremely light adaptable. I have grown mine in full, intense, wicked Nigerian sun and it never scorched. I've also grown it in low light and it didn't die. It's currently growing in a medium light situation, medium low light situation in my living room, and this plant is still chilling. It is not dying, not a single yellowing leaf. So it is extremely light adaptable and pretty much can handle different light conditions, which makes it a fantastic decorative plant, not just for your interior decor, but also for your outside decor as well. In fact, in this part of the world, it is used as a landscaping plant. And to be honest, it's a bit of a status symbol here as well because it is very expensive. The bigger the ponytail palm is, the more expensive it tends to be. So if you want to make a statement amongst your peers that, you're affluent, you're opulent, you have lots of disposable income, you can get a really huge ponytail palm, and have it as a porch decorative plant or in your interior as well. So please, if you are still sleeping on this plant, you're missing out on not just a fantastic plant, but an amazing decorative plant, period. Let's proceed to the next set of plants. I call this an entire set because let me tell you something, babes. There are certain plants that when they attain a leggy and stretchy growth profile, it enhances their decorative appeal. It enhances their beauty and it makes them look a bit more interesting. Now, if you're wondering what legginess is, I've used that term several times in this video already, but if you're still wondering what it means, legginess is basically a fancy term for a plant that is stretching towards the light. Usually it occurs when a plant is placed in an area where it isn't getting enough light, so it stretches towards the brightest light source, which in a lot of cases can ruin their growth profile and make it look hideous looking. But that is not the case for a handful of plants. The first of which is, come closer. It's a Trachina reflector. The Song of India, the Song of Jamaica, those are two different variants of this plant, but I think their common name is a Dracaena reflector. Some of you may remember the iconic specimen that Benji Plant once had. He had a beautiful specimen in his living room that honestly was quite the statement plant until it was destroyed by that unfortunate fire. Now, the truth of the matter is that the Dracaena reflector is not a low light tolerant plant. Stay with me, please. Stay with me for a second. Everything will begin to make sense. This is actually a plant that appreciates bright light, and in this part of the world can even take our full, intense hellfire light. It is certainly not like your other Dracaenas that are a bit more low light tolerant, but that is actually what makes this a beautiful decorative plant in the long run, because when it is brought in a low light space, it starts to lose its leaves. Mine is even in the process of doing that. The leaves start to crinkle and the leaves start to drop, and then the plant starts to stretch and stretch, and that is when you have that beautiful leggy but beautiful architectural growth profile, are like the type that Benji Plant once had. This is one of the few plants that looks better when it is leggy and sparse than when it is full and compact. What do you think? I'm going to put side by side pictures so you be the judge, but I'm sure we'll all agree that in terms of decor, in terms of something that will just make your space look unique, a fantastic conversation starter, this is gonna be a better alternative. I will say though that this is a very slow growing plant, and I wish I knew this earlier before I bought mine. I bought mine and it's quite short, and some of you may remember I took you guys shopping together, but when I was buying mine I saw a much bigger one that at the time I was shocked at how expensive it was. Little did I know that this is a plant that grows really slowly even outdoors, so it's best you get a mature tall one from the get-go. It might cost a bit more, but it makes sense because of how slow it grows. In fact, I feel like going back to where I bought mine before and going for the bigger one. I feel like a bigger one would just be more beautiful in that space when it is leggy and sparse. Another plant that assumes this leggy profile in a beautiful manner is your umbrella tree, your Schefflera, your common umbrella tree. Now, honestly, this plant is mostly grown as an outdoor plant in the tropical parts of the world. We grow it here as a hedge landscaping plant. You girlies in the West tend to grow this one more indoors. And for some strange reason, someone lied to you that this is a low light tolerant plant. It's not. It likes a lot of high light. But when placed in low light, again, which is what we're trying to achieve here for decorative purposes, it starts to drop its leaves and it assumes that leggy, stretchy profile. Now, ideally, if you're somebody who is collecting plants to grow, to actually grow them to be beautiful specimens, one will argue that this is not an ideal look. But if your goal is to get that plant to be a decorative plant, then this will make for a fantastic, beautiful, decorative, structural look in any space. I'm also curious to know, do you know any other plants that when they are leggy just become and look a bit more decorative? Let me know in the comments. Okay. Also, darlings, please, at this venture, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do. Please, there's no electricity in this third world nation. The electricity went off while I was shooting this video. I'm shooting this with no electricity, sweating, as you can see. But the show must go on. So please subscribe. Thank you. The next one I want to talk about, ironically, is also a Dracaena. I feel like sometimes we forget this also belongs to the Dracaena family based off of how it is sold. Darlings, it's a lucky bamboo. But specifically lucky bamboos that are grown in water. The ones that are grown in water and have a more oblonged and curved like middle region towards the tip, those ones make excellent excellent decorative plants. All you need is a vase. Stick them in water in a transparent or decorative vase and you are pretty much good to go. There's also something about growing plants in water. I don't know what it is. If you are a biologist or whoever, please let us know in the comments. But there's something about growing plants in water that makes them more tolerant to low light. Once that plant is growing in water, you can stick it even in the darkest of corners and it still fares decently. The same applies for this babe. She's typically sold growing in water, and just stick her anywhere on top of a shelf, the middle tier of a shelf, anywhere, and she automatically fits and enhances that space while providing that structure. You will notice that there's a common thing here with these plants that make excellent decorative plants. Their growth structure is defined. It's not too bushy. It's just a defined structure. It's almost like they're living pieces of furniture. And the lucky bamboo is a great example. Yes, again, common, generic. You guys in the States, in the US can find, they're quite expensive here in this country, but you can find them, I don't know, I'm guessing for like $5, $10. But just because a plant is cheap and common doesn't mean that it's not a beautiful decorative plant. Okay, now this next plant, I feel like this plant is going to free a lot of you from the chokehold of getting a fiddle leaf tree as a decorative plant. A fiddle leaf tree is beautiful. Honestly, it's a plant that almost has like a luxurious appeal to it, but it is not a good decorative plant. In fact, this is a plant that I do not even advise people in this part of the world to grow indoors, even though it is native to this part of the world, because it likes a whole lot of light than a lot of people realize. Except you have like floor to ceiling windows, you have like overhead exposed, light lean above, natural light above, a glass ceiling, then this is not a plant that I would advise you grow indoors as a decorative plant without giving it like a really strong grow light. Okay, now, but this plant on the other hand, I believe has the same presence, the same gravitas as your fiddle leaf fig, while being more tolerant to low light, even a lot more drought tolerant, and just as decorative. It's your Fabian aralia. We need to bring back aralias. They used to be standard houseplants a few decades ago, but for some reason we millennials just have figured that they aren't cool enough for our collections. The Fabian aralia, especially the one that has that stump, the ones with a fat stump, that fat yummy stump, oh my goodness gracious, please just look at the material. This will make a beautiful decorative plant that gives you that statement and that foliage and that gravitas effect that you're looking for in your fiddle leaf fig, while providing structure and while being drought tolerant. I'm not really a fan of leafy plants, as decorative plants, because I feel like with leafy plants that have a lot of foliage, sometimes you have to contend with leaf loss because not all parts of the plant may be getting adequate light, especially in that decorative corner. So this is a plant that, in my opinion, tends to hold its foliage for a long period of time, even in low light. Plus, the ones with that stump tend to be a bit more drought tolerant, because some of you pointed out when I mentioned this plant in previous videos that your experience with aralias is that they can be quite thirsty. Yes, the Ming aralias, the ones that have thinner foliages, but these ones that have a bit more like firmness to their foliage, and especially the stump, the ones with the stump, they're a lot more drought tolerant. Now, I want you to write to your coaster fans, write to your big box stores, petition them to start stocking these plants. And you guys, please start buying them. Start buying plants for decorative purposes, not just because they are rare or they're Instagrammable or, rubbish. Now, speaking of a plant that is common, this is probably the most common plant in the world. In fact, in this part of the world, it can be an invasive weed. In fact, in certain parts of the world, actually, it's an invasive weed. It's as common as there is, but there is no bookshelf. There is no floating shelf. There is no top layer of any shelf that this plant doesn't further enhance and complement. It's a good old golden pothos. Darlings, you need a golden pothos for that shelf, for that floating shelf. You need a plant that will just trail downwards while not requiring a lot of light. We've talked about this before. In fact, I would strongly advise you go watch. I feel like this is like a series, a houseplant styling decor series. Go watch the previous 2 videos I have. I'm going to see if I can make a playlist. And you see how dimensions, especially with trailing plants can accommodate for a lack of height in certain areas. Also, every trailing plant, like I mentioned in one of those videos, when placed on top a shelf, it is the perfect combination. And your golden pothos allows you to do that without worrying about placing a grow light in that corner. Grow lights may be effective, but they can honestly kill the decorative vibe of a space. So you always want plants that you can place anywhere. Look at how I'm sweating, guys. Being a YouTuber in this country is not easy. But as I was saying, you want plants that you can place anywhere without, having to worry about, oh my God, grow lights, oh my God. And that is where your golden pothos comes in. I do have a pothos. This is not a golden pothos. I feel like this is an emerald pothos, right? Not as showy as your golden pothos, but it gets the job done. So this is also a great alternative. She's right on this shelf. No grow light. I don't have to worry about the grow light here. She's in an area that doesn't get a ton of light, but she's just still there. She's been there for months, doing her thing, not a single yellowing leaf. Now imagine if I placed a grow light, it will ruin the vibe. So again, this is why you need a plant like a golden pothos. It doesn't need a grow light. And you can place it in any corner and it just trails downwards. All right. Now, this plant, especially if you're growing it in a brighter space or if you live in a tropical country and you're growing this outdoors, it can grow so aggressively and look like an unruly, dangerous mess. But if you're growing this in lower lights, indoors, you don't have to worry about that. This one hasn't grown in months. Or maybe pushes out 1 or 2 leaves once every 2-3 months. And I'm fine. I'm growing it for its decorative appeal. Okay? We're about to round up this video, but one thing I want you to take out of it is that as you mature in gardening, you start to realize that it's not every plant that you want to grow into a full bushy plant. There are certain plants that you just want to maintain their growth profile. You don't want them to grow too big. Every plant doesn't have to grow into a beast. Okay? So we've come to the end of this video. I almost died of heat while shooting it, but I do hope you found it useful. Okay? If you did, all I'm asking for is that you like and share and subscribe. And if you want to support the ministry, if you feel led to support the ministry, please donate to my Buy Me Coffee. It's linked in my bio. I'm actually saving towards getting myself a solar panel, and we're building up our savings slow and steady so I don't die of heat in the process of filming my YouTube videos for you. But anyways, thank you so much for joining me. I've yapped enough. I will see you guys in the comments and in the next YouTube video.